Sometimes the most obvious clue is the one nobody sees. A detail hiding in plain sight. Something everyone noticed but never questioned. Until it's too late. Today we're diving into 4 international mysteries that haunted investigators for months, years, even decades. Cases that seemed impossible to crack, but the key to solving them was always there, staring everyone in the face. Before we begin this journey into some of humanity's darkest corners, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what's coming. And if you appreciate the research that goes into uncovering these region-locked cases that the English-speaking world rarely hears about, smash that like button. It helps more than you know. Now let's get into it. September 13th, 2025, Hanoi, Vietnam. The morning sun was already beating down on the streets, the air thick with humidity and the constant hum of motorbikes. Scooters everywhere, trucks rumbling past, street vendors calling out. Just another day in one of Asia's most vibrant cities. Among the thousands of commuters that morning was a 15-year-old girl named Wen Ha. She was riding her electric motorbike to school, a gift from her parents, one they had saved for months to afford. The Wins weren't wealthy, far from it. They'd even had to borrow money to buy that bike. But in their minds, it was worth every dong. Their daughter had just been accepted into her dream school. The bike meant she could get there safely each day, get a quality education, build a better future. The family had celebrated together, believing brighter days were finally ahead. Unfortunately, Wen Ha never made it to her second week of classes. At around 9:20 in the morning, while passing beneath the Vietnamese bridge, disaster struck. A concrete mixer truck clipped her motorbike. The impact sent her and the bike skidding across the asphalt. It was an accident, a terrible accident. But accidents happen on Hanoi's crowded streets every single day. What happened next, however, was not an accident. It was something far darker, something that would shock an entire nation. After the initial collision, the truck driver stopped. He got out. He checked on the girl, saw that she was still breathing, still alive, and then he made a decision, a calculated, cold-blooded decision. He got back in his truck and he drove forward, with Wen Ha underneath his wheels, deliberately dragging her along the road. Witnesses watched in absolute horror. They described seeing the young girl being torn apart, almost split in half by the truck's massive tires. People rushed into the street, pulled her broken body from beneath the vehicle. They raced her to Buk Mi Hospital, but the damage was catastrophic. Within hours, 15-year-old Wen Ha was pronounced dead. That evening, the truck driver walked into the Fusin police station. Calm as you like, he turned himself in. His name was Din Van Long, 51 years old, and what he told police left them speechless. According to the official report, Long confessed everything. He admitted that after striking the girl, he had made a conscious decision. He chose to drag her under his truck. He chose to ensure she died. Why? His reasoning was as chilling as it was calculated. Under Vietnamese law, if Wen Ha had survived, he would be responsible for her medical treatment. All of it. Physical therapy, surgery, rehabilitation, possibly for the rest of her life. The costs could run into hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions. But if she died, he'd only owe her family a fixed compensation payment, a one-time fee, significantly less than lifelong medical care. So he made his choice. He killed her to save money. Police officers thought he had to be joking. They assumed he was drunk or high. But toxicology tests came back clean. No alcohol, no drugs. This decision wasn't made in a haze of intoxication or temporary insanity. It was made with full awareness, full calculation, cold mathematical logic. Here's the detail everyone missed. The detail that was hiding in plain sight. For years, there had been rumors circulating on Vietnamese forums, whispers among truck drivers at roadside cafes. A dark piece of folklore known as the underground law of the road. The idea was simple and horrifying. For some drivers, it's cheaper to kill a crash victim than to let them live. A survivor brings lifelong financial burden. A body brings one payment, and often just a traffic citation. This wasn't just urban legend. There had been previous cases. Multiple instances where crash victims were deliberately dragged to their deaths. And the perpetrators? They received nothing more than traffic-related sentences. Light punishments, slaps on the wrist. The system had inadvertently created a perverse incentive, an economic calculation that valued money over human life. Everyone knew about these rumors. Police knew. Lawyers knew. But nobody had done anything to change the law. Nobody had closed this horrifying loophole until Wen Ha's case forced their hand. This time, public outrage was too strong to ignore. The details were too clear. The confession too damning. Dinh Van Long was charged with premeditated murder, not vehicular manslaughter, not reckless driving, murder. His trial is still pending. But if convicted, he faces Vietnam's harshest penalty, death by firing squad or lethal injection. Wen Ha's family has been left devastated. She was known as a devoted daughter. She helped around the house, cared for her younger sibling, never spent money unnecessarily because she knew how hard her parents worked. She had told friends she wanted to help her family, make their lives better. But she never got the chance because in the mind of the driver who hit her, her life had a value. It just wasn't one he was willing to pay. The detail that everyone saw but nobody questioned. That Vietnamese compensation law, that economic incentive for murder. It was always there, written in black and white, creating a system where human life became a cost-benefit analysis. And it took the death of a 15-year-old girl to finally make people pay attention. If you're still watching, you're clearly interested in these deep dives into international true crime. Do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, but it makes a massive difference to the channel. Let's keep going. Our second case takes us to Russia. August 2022, St. Petersburg, Russia's cultural capital, a city of palaces and museums, of white nights and frozen winters, and home to a thriving community of artists, musicians, and social media influencers. Among them was a woman named Anastasia Kumlovskaya, though her friends called her Nastia. Online, she went by the name Gishman, and she was impossible to miss. Born in 1996, Anastasia had a difficult start in life. Her father abandoned the family. Her mother struggled to make ends meet. For years, they were technically homeless, sharing a bed in a hostel, scraping by however they could. Eventually, her mother moved cities for work and sent young Anastasia to live with her paternal grandmother. The babushka recognized the girl's artistic talents early on. She bought her paints, encouraged her creativity, and controversially took her to get her first tattoo at just 15 years old. From then on, Anastasia adopted a personal mantra: I am the canvas. By the time she was 18 and legally able to get more tattoos, she had already covered herself head to toe in ink. Coming from poverty, she was determined to make something of herself. She went to college to study computing and automotive mechanics. But more than anything, Anastasia wanted to be seen, to matter, to build something of her own. She came of age right when social media was exploding in Russia, when fame felt suddenly attainable for anyone with a distinctive aesthetic and the courage to put themselves out there. Anastasia had both. She began posting photos of her tattoos, her body modifications, her cosplay shoots. Gradually, she built a following. 300,000 followers across TikTok, VK, and Instagram. She sold art prints, offered tattoo appointments, ran online courses in design and computing. She transformed her internet fame into a legitimate business, eventually earning enough to move into her own apartment in St. Petersburg. Anastasia understood that success online required consistency. She kept her fans engaged with a steady stream of posts. Every single day, something new. Photos, videos, updates, interactions. Her audience came to expect it. So when that constant stream suddenly stopped in early August 2022, people noticed. At first, her account still appeared active. New posts went up, but something felt off. The content was old, recycled images and videos from months earlier. Concerned friends reached out via text and private messages, but Anastasia's replies were strange, vague and oddly detached. "I'm feeling sick. I don't want to talk right now. I'll be back soon." It sounded like her, but not quite. Something was wrong. On August 10th, her loved ones called the police and requested a welfare check. When officers arrived at her apartment, they immediately smelled something terrible, something sweet and rotten, seeping from under the door. They forced their way inside and found Anastasia's body in the bathtub. She had been stabbed more than a dozen times. First in the bedroom, investigators determined, then dragged to the bathroom and left there for a week, decomposing in the summer heat. The smell was overwhelming. The scene was horrific. But the investigation moved quickly. Within 24 hours, police had their suspect in custody. Anastasia's 24-year-old husband, Dmitry Chernyshov. They found him hiding in a nearby motel, and they found something else, Anastasia's phone, in his possession. According to investigators, after murdering his wife, Dmitry had used her device to impersonate her online. He replied to friends' messages, posted on her social media accounts, made it appear as if she was still alive. He even pushed a sale on her online courses, sold some of her possessions on marketplace sites, trying to squeeze every last ruble out of her audience while she lay dead in her own bathtub. Police found her body sprayed with perfume, vents and pipes taped up to mask the smell of decomposition. He had even extended the lease on her apartment, buying himself time. Dmitry's defense was bizarre. He initially claimed Anastasia had asked him to end her life, that it was mercy killing, that she wanted to die. But prosecutors painted a very different picture, one of jealousy, greed, and control. Dmitry had been involved in adult content creation. He made money by filming explicit videos with his partners and uploading them to various platforms. When he met rising star Anastasia through his then-girlfriend Margarita, he saw an opportunity. Behind Margarita's back, he showered Anastasia with gifts, bonded with her over their shared love of cars, wormed his way into her life. After they became a couple, Dmitry began acting as Anastasia's manager. She started appearing in his videos, According to friends, Anastasia became quieter, more reclusive. They suspected Dmitry was controlling her, that she couldn't say no to his demands, not to staying home, not to filming increasingly hardcore content, not even to marriage. A few months before her death, Anastasia appeared on a Russian talk show with her mother. They discussed the adult film industry. Her mother voiced concerns that her daughter was being coerced, that she had brought dishonor to the family name. But she also said Dmitry seemed like a mild-mannered and polite young man, that she didn't fear for Anastasia's safety. Then, something significant happened. Midway through the broadcast, Dmitry's ex-girlfriend Margarita came forward. She described how Dmitry had beaten her, strangled her, exploited her in exactly the same way he was now treating Anastasia. Dmitry, sitting just feet away, dismissed her claims. Anastasia stood by him, said she had always wanted to make adult content, that Dmitry had never struck her. She even laughed at Margarita's obvious distress, mocked her for acting up for the cameras. But Margarita's story was a warning Anastasia should have heeded. After that broadcast, Dmitry stopped working entirely. He became completely dependent on Anastasia's income. Neighbors later reported hearing frequent arguments from their apartment, thuds and crashes. Many believe he was beating her just as he had beaten Margarita. Whatever the truth, their relationship deteriorated rapidly. Dmitry moved out, and Anastasia reportedly began spending time with another TikToker, a man named Kirill. She met with him several times the day she died. It's alleged that Dmitry heard about this new friendship and arrived at her apartment that August night in a jealous rage. It's unclear whether she let him in or whether he used his old key. But when he entered, he saw packed boxes and suitcases everywhere. Anastasia was leaving, moving away. According to evidence found online, Anastasia had long dreamed of opening a tattoo studio in South Korea, a place where Dmitry couldn't follow her. Because of his prior convictions for theft and evading military service, Russian law barred him from leaving the country. Prosecutors argued that Dmitry could feel his wife, his sole source of income, slipping away. And he decided if he couldn't have her and her money, nobody could. The very first thing Dmitry did after killing Anastasia, he messaged Kirill from her phone, telling him she never wanted to see him again. Here's the detail everyone saw, but nobody questioned. Those vague social media messages, those recycled posts. Friends noticed something was off, but they assumed Anastasia was just tired, sick, taking a break. They didn't push harder, didn't demand proof of life. The warning signs were there, the red flags were flying, but everyone second-guessed themselves, gave her space, waited politely for her to respond. And by the time they realized something was truly wrong, it was too late. In 2024, Dmitry Chernyshov was found guilty and sentenced to 8 years in a remote penal colony known as Polar Wolf. 8 years for murder. Many felt it was far too lenient. Others pointed out that in Russia, heavy sentences are typically reserved for more serious crimes, like criticizing the government. The talk show that had previously hosted Anastasia returned with a special episode sensationalizing her death. Many people mocked her because of her profession, questioned why such attention was being given to a, quote, worthless adult actress, while others noted the hypocrisy, that Anastasia's death was being trivialized because of her work, while the man who killed her got off comparatively lightly. As one final indignation, Anastasia's own mother allowed reporters to film her daughter's funeral in exchange for a fee. Even in death, people were profiting off Nastia. The detail everyone saw, those off-sounding messages, that recycled content, those vague replies that sounded almost like her, but not quite. Everyone noticed, but nobody acted. Until a week later, when the smell of decomposition finally forced the issue. We're halfway through this investigation into mysteries that were hiding in plain sight. If this content is hitting the spot, show some love by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next in this series. Now let's head to Brazil for one of the most disturbing cases I've ever covered. Garanhuns, a city in the highlands of northeastern Brazil, known for its mild mountain climate and lively festivals that draw visitors from across the region. To outsiders, it looks traditional, even wholesome. But behind one unassuming doorway in this otherwise ordinary city lived a group who believed they were saving the world, one human sacrifice at a time. At the center of this nightmare was Jorge Beltrão Negromonte da Silveira, a failed philosophy student and martial arts instructor with a chilling past. Growing up, Jorge had reportedly killed a 17-year-old, but was acquitted due to lack of evidence. He later tried to kill his own mother after stealing 80,000 reais from her home. In 1984, he married his future accomplice, Isabel Cristina Pires da Silva. The ceremony was modest, though the mood was dampened when Jorge pulled out a knife during the reception and threatened to kill all the guests. Surprisingly, they lived a fairly normal life after that. For 2 years at least. In 1986, Jorge met and fell in love with a 16-year-old named Bruna Cristina Oliveira da Silva. Together, Jorge, Isabel, and Bruna formed a bizarre love triangle, living as a family, though many labeled them a cult, built around their patriarch's delusions. Jorge displayed clear signs of mental illness. He declared he had spoken with angels and cherubs. They had instructed him to purify the world, to protect the earth from sin and overpopulation. As part of this so-called purification, he told his wives they had to consume human flesh and sacrifice 4 victims, each representing one of the natural elements: air, earth, water, and fire. Once the 4 killings were completed, he said, a portal to paradise would open, allowing the group to ascend to a higher plane of existence. Unbelievably, Isabel and Bruna believed him. Together, they created what they called the cartel. Their first known victim was 17-year-old Jessica Camila da Silva Pereira. When she met the group in 2008, she was homeless and struggling to support her 1-year-old daughter financially. The cartel invited Jessica into their home under the pretense of offering her a job. But once inside, she was struck over the head and rendered unconscious. They dragged her into the bathroom, severed her jugular vein, drained her body of blood. Jessica was then skinned, dismembered, seasoned with salt and cumin, and stored in the refrigerator. The trio later admitted they had eaten Jessica's flesh as part of their purification ritual. What makes this even more disturbing? Jessica's infant daughter was given some of her own mother's meat to eat. The cartel decided to keep the child alive and raise her as their own. To the outside world, they appeared an odd but harmless family, one that supported themselves by selling empadas and coxinas at the local market, meat pastries, fried dough filled with savory ingredients, popular street food throughout Brazil. In February 2012, the group cannibalized 31-year-old Giselle Helena da Silva. A few weeks later, on March 15th, they did the same to 20-year-old Alexandra da Silva Falcão. Both were killed in similar fashion, lured into the home, struck on the head, stabbed, sliced up, stored in the fridge, cooked, and consumed. Though they had already selected their fourth victim, thankfully the group didn't get to strike again. After their final murder, neighbors began noticing odd behavior. The smell of decay, the constant burning of incense, the presence of a small child who never attended school. The investigation really began after Giselle's family reported her missing. Witnesses said they had last seen her entering the cartel's home. CCTV footage showed the group using their victims' credit cards to make purchases in town. Acting on a tip, police searched the property on April 9, 2012. Immediately, Jessica's daughter, who was 5 years old at that point, explained how she had seen her father butcher 2 women. In a shallow grave behind the residence, they found human remains belonging to Giselle and Alexandra. Jorge, Isabel, and Bruna were arrested on the spot. The following day, an angry mob of locals set fire to their house. Under questioning, all 3 suspects confessed. They spoke calmly about each incident, claiming they were purging the world of bad people. They alluded to killing more victims that police didn't know about. Police would later say that the salty pastries the group sold, the ones their neighbors loved, were often filled with the preserved flesh of their victims. Think about that for a moment. People had been eating those pastries for years, praising how delicious they were, how flavorful, coming back again and again to buy more. Nobody questioned what was in them. Nobody wondered about the secret ingredient that made them taste so good. The detail was right there, hidden in plain sight, in every single bite. The trio were tried separately for the 3 murders. In 2014, they were convicted for killing Jessica. Jorge received just over 21 years. Isabel and Bruna got 19 years each. In 2018, they were found guilty of murdering Giselle and Alexandra. Jorge's sentence rose to around 71 years. Isabel's extended to 68 years. Bruna's to 71 years and 10 months. In 2019, their sentences were increased again. Jorge by 27 years, his wives by 24. Further psychiatric evaluations followed. Doctors confirmed Jorge suffered from schizophrenia. He was transferred to a secure psychiatric facility to serve his time. He has since become the penitentiary's pastor and a published author, having written 4 books. He's also now a vegetarian. As for Jessica's daughter, despite enduring years of bullying and being called a cannibal, she has thankfully grown up to be a healthy and well-adjusted young woman. Here's a disturbing discovery someone made after researching this case. On the Google Earth Finds subreddit, a user shared that they had managed to find the exact address where the cannibals used to live using Street View. The house is now concealed behind a metal door, but by chance, the Google car just happened to pass by in March 2012, right around the time Alexandra was killed and eaten. If you go to that location and click on that date, the image changes, and a person can be seen entering the home. That person is Isabel, the head chef of the cannibal cult, forever frozen in time on Street View, either just before or just after she served her final pastry. The detail everyone saw but nobody questioned? Those delicious meat pastries, those empadas that everyone raved about, that secret recipe nobody could quite figure out. It was there all along, in plain sight, on every plate, and nobody thought to ask what was really inside. Before we get to our final case, I need you to do something. If you're getting value from this deep dive into international mysteries, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Seriously, these cases take weeks of research, and I need to know you want more. Also, smash that like button. It literally takes 1 second and helps this channel grow. All right, let's head to Taiwan for our final story. And this one haunted investigators for over 20 years. December 9th, 1998. Evening, Taiwan. A farmer named Guo was walking home along Fengyuan Road in Taoyuan, the same route he walked every single day, when he noticed flames shooting straight up into the air from a remote stretch of brush. The wind carried not just the smell of smoke, but also gasoline, and something far worse, something like burned meat. At first, Guo tried to shrug it off, but curiosity got the better of him. He crept closer and hid behind a stack of dried grass. He noticed 4 people standing around a fire, their identities obscured by masks and caps. They were talking in low voices, kept glancing around nervously, like they were worried about being caught. None of them looked like locals, and this stretch of road was the middle of nowhere. So what were they doing, lighting a huge gasoline fire? Overcome with dread, Guo tiptoed backwards, then ran for home. Along the way, he bumped into his neighbor. He too had seen the same fire, had the same bad feeling. Sensing something was wrong, they went straight into Guo's home and called the police. Officers from the nearby substation arrived 30 minutes later. By that point, the 4 fire starters were gone. The responders put out the flames and began examining the charred pile. It appeared to be a large sack with something heavy inside. They cut it open and looked at the contents. Inside was the body of a young woman, burned beyond recognition. Her face was gone, her clothes mostly incinerated. All that remained was part of a leopard print blouse, a black skirt, and leather ankle boots. On her scorched fingers were 3 rings, 2 gold, 1 amber. Her hands had been tied across her chest, and clutched in her arms was the body of a burned black dog. A few of the officers knew exactly what that symbolized. In rural Taiwanese folklore, a black dog's blood is said to ward off ghosts, to blind a spirit so it can't come back for revenge. Police set about trying to identify the Jane Doe. The forensic doctor could only narrow down the search so much. They determined that cause of death was mechanical asphyxiation, that she had probably been dead less than 24, maybe 48 hours, that she was around 165 centimeters tall, around 25 to 30 years of age, slim, had perfect teeth, and had a 5-centimeter scar on her left wrist. Detectives searched through missing persons reports, but found nobody matching that description. They published the case in newspapers and on TV. Still, nobody came forward. With no CCTV in the area and 2 eyewitnesses who couldn't see faces, the case inevitably stalled. The woman was buried in Shuangxi Cemetery under the name Unidentified Female Fengyuan Road Section 4, and for 20 years, that's how she was known. Then, in May 2019, a phone rang at the Miaoli police station. "I can't take it anymore," said a terrified voice on the other end. "She's been haunting me for over half a year. I want to tell you the truth about a murder from decades ago." The caller identified himself as Yi Hao. He said the unidentified female was a half Taiwanese, half Japanese girl named Xiaowen. She was 17 years old and used to work at a betel nut store on Zhongshan Road. The operator asked how he knew that. Yi said he was friends with the store owners, a couple known as Little Pan and Ah Chi, as well as their close associates, Chang Pi and Baby. In December 1998, he had found the four of them holding Xiaowen against her will. He hadn't dared report it back then. He was only 15 and feared what the others might do to him. What made him call now, he said, was that half a year earlier, he had reconnected with one of the group, namely, Baby. While drinking together, he asked her whatever happened to that girl they had been holding captive. Baby calmly responded, "Oh, she was burned." After that, Yihao kept having nightmares, seeing Xiaowen at night, burned, on top of him, pressing him down, asking why he still hadn't reported what he knew. The dog blood clearly hadn't worked. Yihao's tip was promising, but there was a problem. The forensic doctor had been adamant the victim was between 25 and 30 years of age. Xiaowen was 17. Could the doctor really have made such a big mistake? Detectives decided to pursue this lead anyway, and to their amazement, they learned that on December 25th, 1998, a man had reported his 17-year-old Taiwanese-Japanese daughter missing. Her name was Lin Muhan, but everyone called her Xiaowen. After immigrating from Japan, she had struggled to adapt to Taiwanese life. Her Mandarin skills weren't up to par. This led to poor grades. Lonely and unhappy, she drifted into the nightlife scene, frequenting clubs, drinking with older men. Her father routinely scolded her for her behavior, admitted to striking her on occasion. This created a rift between them. In 1996, Xiaowen dropped out of school and moved north to Pingjin. Despite running away, she stayed in weekly contact with her father. He reported her missing in 1998 after 2 weeks of radio silence. The name, the age, the dual nationality, the district, the time frame. All the details matched Yihao's tip. It began to appear this case could have been resolved decades earlier had detectives not discounted Xiaowen as a possible match due to her age. Feeling embarrassed, detectives decided to compare DNA samples collected at the scene years prior against Xiaowen's father. But at some point, those sample boxes had been thrown out. No matter. They'd simply exhume the burned woman's grave and take a sample directly. But unbelievably, nobody had kept a note of where she was buried. The cemetery had been redeveloped in the intervening years. The 2 men who handled the burial had since passed away. It looked like they were stuck again. Without hard evidence, Yihao's tip was nothing more than a convincing story. But then they got lucky. The forensics office discovered someone had mixed up the 1998 and 1999 sample boxes. The victim's DNA hadn't been thrown out after all. They compared it, got an exact match. The burned woman was indeed 17-year-old Xiaowen. With the victim officially identified and a living witness on record, police moved to arrest the 4 suspects Yihao had named. 3 of them were still in Taiwan: Ah Chi, Baby, and their supposed ringleader, Little Pan. However, the 4th suspect, Chang Pi, had long since fled overseas. Officers debated whether they should pick up the 3 who remained. Doing so would tip off Chang Pi, and he'd never return to face justice. They waited for a year, but ultimately decided catching 3 out of 4 perpetrators wasn't bad. Little Pan, Ah Chi, and Baby were living in completely different areas by that point, leading quiet, unassuming family lives. 3 separate police units picked them up simultaneously and drove them straight to Fengyuan Road, Section 4. When they got there, the lead officer asked, "Do you know who was burned here 2 decades ago?" He expected them to say no, to throw each other under the bus, but instead, all 3 dropped to their knees and began apologizing to Xiaowen. From there, the full story came out. After running away from home at 15, Xiaowen drifted into the betel nut shop run by Little Pan, his girlfriend Chi, their friend Changpi, and a younger girl nicknamed Baby. Pan was the de facto leader. He quickly took a liking to the new runaway. She was cheerful, energetic, eager to please. Before long, he offered her a job as a betel nut beauty, a young, scantily clad woman who attracts customers by sitting in the window or standing on the street. She was way too young, but she was an immediate hit with the store's sleazy clientele, who referred to her as the Cherry Blossom Girl, a reference to her beauty and heritage. The place wasn't much, but Xiaowen finally felt like she had found somewhere to belong. Over time, she grew especially close to the boss lady, Chi. At first, they were inseparable, laughing together, sharing food, gossiping. It was the closest thing to family she'd had in months, but the closeness didn't last. Envy, petty jealousy, and shifting alliances simmered beneath the surface. Chi began to suspect that Xiaowen had feelings for Changpi. Problem was, so did Baby. Word spread. Jealousy festered. Baby made it her mission to teach that snake a lesson. With the help of a few friends, she pinned Xiaowen down, beat her, and shaved her head. Humiliated and distressed, Xiaowen called her father. Through floods of tears, she said she needed money for a wig. But instead of offering sympathy, her father reprimanded her for getting involved with such lowlifes and hung up. He would regret that for the rest of his life. It was the last time he ever spoke with his daughter. On December 6, 1998, Little Pan realized money was coming up short. Someone was skimming from the register. Baby immediately accused Xiaowen of stealing, said she had used the money to buy expensive jewelry, and in Little Pan's volatile mind, that checked out. In a violent rage, he dragged the 17-year-old into a room above the store, tied her up, locked her inside, and so began Xiaowen's 72 hours of hell. From then on, Pan declared that Xiaowen was the store's punching bag. Whenever anyone felt in a bad mood, they were welcome to go upstairs and beat her. And all 4 of them did, repeatedly, with fists and sticks. The atmosphere became more sadistic as the nights wore on. On December 7th, things spiraled further. The group denied Xiaowen food and water, sliced her face and thighs with a machete, beat her with a baseball bat, all while trying to force a confession about the missing cash. But her condition had deteriorated rapidly. She could barely speak in her own defense. That's when Little Pan started to panic. He was a regular amphetamine user. He feared Xiaowen would tell police about his drug addiction. As an active duty soldier partway through mandatory national service, Little Pan knew if he was reported, he'd be tried in a military court, face an extremely severe punishment. On December 8th, his paranoia peaked. He decided Xiaowen had to be silenced permanently. The other 3 agreed to go along with the plan. After all, they were already in deep. There was just one problem. While they deliberated about how to finish her off, Yihao arrived unannounced. He came face to face with the 4 soon-to-be killers and their tied-up, soon-to-be victim. When the group noticed Yihao, they surrounded him. ordered him to hurt Xiaowen, technically making him an accomplice. He fled the scene the first chance he got. Didn't speak about what he'd seen for 21 long years. After he left, the group decided to act before any other witnesses turned up. In the early hours of December 9th, Chi took thin sheets of joss paper, wetted them, layered them over Xiaowen's face, blocking her airflow. When she was on the verge of losing consciousness, Changpi held her legs while Pan wrapped a towel around her neck. He inserted a stick and twisted until her cervical spine snapped. All the while, a very nervous baby stood by the door acting as lookout. She now knew what would happen if the others found out the truth, that she was the one skimming money from the register, not Xiaowen. After taking Xiaowen's life, the perpetrators brought in a mystic, a woman known only as Hu. Rather than call police, she advised them to kill a black dog and sprinkle its blood over the corpse, not just to blind the victim's spirit so she couldn't find and haunt them, but so the animal would carry their sin into the afterlife, leaving them free of guilt both in this world and the next. They followed the mystic's advice. After driving Xiaowen's body out to Fengyuan Road and setting the fire, the group immediately dissolved the betel nut stand, scattered in different directions, cut all contact with one another. 21 years later, 3 of those perpetrators were finally in court, in a trial that began just 45 days before the statute of limitations would have expired. Despite their past confessions and expressions of remorse, in front of the judge, they all pled not guilty. Tried to pass the blame, each saying they only watched as the others killed Xiaowen. At first, the judge gave the 2 main offenders, Little Pan and Chi, life sentences. Baby, who was a juvenile at the time, got 14 years and 10 months. However, on appeal, the court said the offenders had all been young, impulsive, and still reformable at the time of the crime. They cut the main sentences to 14 years and 6 months. Baby's was also reduced to 14 years and 2 months. Xiaowen's father got nothing. His civil claim was rejected. His daughter's remains, buried under the name unidentified female, were never located for a proper funeral. He told the media he regretted not being a better father. If he had been, he said, Xiaowen would still be alive. He passed away in 2023, still angry, still full of guilt. Here's the detail everyone saw, but nobody questioned. The forensic examiner's age estimate, 25 to 30 years old. It was wrong, drastically wrong. But because that expert spoke with such confidence, such authority, nobody questioned it. When Xiaowen's father reported his 17-year-old daughter missing, investigators dismissed her as a candidate. The ages didn't match, so they moved on. For 20 years, the answer was sitting right there in the missing persons files. But because one expert made one mistake and nobody thought to double-check, a killer walked free for 2 decades. It wasn't until a witness came forward, haunted by nightmares, claiming a ghost wouldn't let him sleep, that the case finally got a second look. And when they actually compared the details properly, everything clicked into place. The detail was always there, hiding in plain sight, in a file cabinet, on a shelf, waiting for someone to question the expert's conclusion. So there you have it, 4 mysteries that stumped investigators for months, years, even decades. Cases that seemed impossible to crack, but in every single one, the key to solving them was always there, staring everyone in the face. a law that incentivized murder, social media posts that felt slightly off, delicious pastries with a secret ingredient, a forensic report that nobody thought to question, details everyone saw, but nobody acted on, until it was too late. These cases teach us something important. Sometimes the most obvious clue is the one we're most likely to ignore. We second-guess ourselves. We defer to experts. We don't want to seem paranoid or difficult. We assume someone else has already thought of it. But sometimes that assumption costs lives. Sometimes the answer is right there, in plain sight. And all it takes is one person willing to ask the uncomfortable question. One person willing to say, wait, something doesn't add up here. If you made it this far, you're clearly invested in these deep dives into international true crime. Do me a massive favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And absolutely smash that like button. It genuinely helps more than you know. Drop a comment below telling me which case shocked you the most, or share a detail from a case you know about that was hiding in plain sight. I read every single comment, and your engagement keeps this channel alive. Before you go, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who supports this channel, to the members, to the Patreon supporters, to everyone who watches these videos all the way through. You make this possible. This type of research takes weeks, translating documents, verifying sources, making sure every detail is accurate and respectful to the victims and their families. None of this happens without your support. These weren't just mysteries. They were real people, real lives, real families left behind to grieve. When Ha was 15 years old with her whole life ahead of her, Anastasia wanted to open a tattoo studio in Korea. Jessica was a struggling single mother trying to support her baby. Xiaowen was a lonely teenager just looking for somewhere to belong. They all deserved better. They deserved justice, and they deserved to have their stories told with dignity and respect. So remember their names, remember their faces, and remember that sometimes the most important details are the ones everyone sees but nobody questions. Until someone finally does. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.